Dear students, I genuinely assume that you all have fathomed the first part of the lesson, A Letter to God. Also, I hope that you have gone through the lesson thoroughly. Now, let's go to the remaining parts of the lesson. God, he wrote, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes because the hailstorm. In this para, we understand as Lencho has lost everything in his field, he wrote a letter to God for 100 pesos through which he could recultivate the crops, which resembles that he had a deep faith in God. We go to the next para. He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still troubled went to town. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped into the mailbox, which tells that the letter which he wrote was brought to town by himself and dropped into the mailbox. He does this because he doesn't believe in someone to do it for the sake of him. One of the employees, who was a postman and also helped at the post office, went to his boss laughing heartily and showed him the letter to God. Never in his career as a postman had he known that address. The postmaster, a fat, amiable fellow, also broke out laughing, but almost immediately he turned serious and tapping the letter on his desk commented, what faith! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter, starting up a correspondence with God. Which tells that the postmaster, after seeing the address of the letter which was dropped in the mail, was abashed and laughed loudly. Henceforth, he handed over the letter to the postmaster. Then he too laughed and suddenly became serious of seeing the letter and its address, which is the communication between the God and the human being that never had happened in his whole life. We go to the next para. So, in order not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster came up with an idea, answered the letter. But when he opened it, it was evident that to answer it, he needed something more than goodwill, ink and paper. But he stuck to his resolution. He asked for money from his employees. He himself gave part of his salary, and several friends of his were obliged to give something for an act of charity. Here we could see the postmaster was a kind hearted man who was ready to answer to his letter by not shaking his faith in God. Similarly, he requested his colleagues to pay him the amount which they could. Also, he gave a part of his salary for an act of charity. We go to the next para. It was impossible for him to gather together the 100 pesos, so he was able to send the farmer only a little more than half. He put the money in an envelope addressed to Lencho and with it a letter containing only a single word as a signature, God. Which means that the postmaster couldn't gather 100 pesos, rather little more than half, and sent to Lenjo's address in an envelope signed with the God's sign. Next, we come to the oral comprehension check. Students, for this, I request you to verify the answers which are sent, and we go on to the next para. The following Sunday, Lencho came a bit earlier than usual to ask if there was a letter for him. It was the postman himself who handed the letter to him, while the postmaster, experiencing the contentment of a man who has performed a good deed, looked on from his office. This obviously tells that the postmaster was very much satisfied for his work, what he has done, and experiencing everything from his office as Lencho came little earlier on that Sunday to collect money which was handed over by the postmaster. Lencho showed not the slightest surprise on seeing the money, such was his confidence, but he became angry when he counted the money. God could not have made a mistake, nor could he have denied Lencho what he had requested. Students, this genuinely tells us that after receiving the letter from the postman, Lencho did not react to anything. Once the envelope was opened, he was angry that he didn't receive the 100 pesos, rather less than that. For all this, he didn't blame God. Similarly, had a doubt on the post office people. We come to the last para of this chapter. Immediately, Lencho went up to the window to ask for paper and ink. On the public writing table, he started to write, with much wrinkling of his brow, caused by the effort he had to make to express his ideas. When he finished, he went to the window to buy a stamp, which he licked and then affixed to the envelope with a blow of his fist. The moment the letter fell into the mailbox, the postmaster went to open it. It said, God, of the money that I asked for, only 70 pesos reached me. Send me the rest since I need it very much. But don't send it to me through the mail because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. Here, Lenjo suddenly moved towards the office window and got a paper and a pen, as well as he wrote another letter and dropped in the mail. Within no time, the postmaster opened the letter and read that Lencho asked 100 pesos, but only 70 pesos reached, and this time he asked God not to send the money through the post office. Finally, dear students, we receive the brilliant message through this chapter that God never approaches directly to help us, rather, He takes in the form of many to help the needy. Hence, we must not blame others. Okay, dear students, we have accomplished reading the first chapter, A Letter to God. I request you to verify the oral comprehension